Hello, my name is Rachel, and my book review is on La Moscheta by Angelo Biolco, better known by his nickname of Rusante. So I'm just going to provide some background, a little bit of history on Angelo Biolco. He was born in 1496 in Padua, or rather a small town near Padua called Pernumia. Padua is where many of Biolco's works, including La Moscheta, are based. He is known for his comedies written mostly in the Paduan dialect, in which all of his work features a peasant called Rusante, which is named after him. His plays did a very good job at portraying Paduan country life in the 16th century. Biolco received a good education while growing up with his father and went on to produce 11 plays and monologues before his death in 1542. Many of Biolco's plays were often banned or deemed inappropriate due to the more mature themes such as sex and desire, which shocked much of the audience, and the use of profanity in his plays. However, they were well received by rural nobles. After 1526, none of his plays were staged in Venice, however. Despite his success as an actor and with the majority of his plays, he lived and died very poor. I've added two pictures of Padua, one from 1589 and one from this year, just to kind of picture the time period in which La Moscheta takes place. The older picture on the left corner is a picture of the botanical garden at the Padua University in 1589, and La Moscheta was written between 1527 and 1531. So this picture is a slight representation of the city in the 16th century, and the colored picture on the bottom right is the same botanical garden, just from this year. So the colored picture is what it looks like today, and then the older one is what it looked like back then, and it's just a comparison so you can kind of picture what the setting was like in that play. So La Moscheta was written between 1527 and 1531. The play consists of 5 acts in which the main character Rusante disguises himself and uses different speech to his wife to find out if she is cheating on him. Throughout the play, the characters converse in a Paduan dialect similar to Venetian dialect. However, when Rusante approaches his wife, he does not want her to know that it is him who is speaking to her, so he uses a different accent and a different dialect to speak with her. His wife, Bettia, sees through his disguise and realizes that her husband does not trust her, so she then decides, as a punishment to him, to pursue an adulterous relationship with Rusante's friend Minato, who gladly reciprocates her advances. So there are 6 main characters of this play. The first one is the villain who reads the prologue. He doesn't have a name and he's only seen in the beginning of the play. Second is Minato, who is the friend of Rusante, who's also a villainous character. He's just very rude and selfish. Bettia is the wife of Rusante, who Rusante thinks is cheating on him. Tonin is just a secondary character, just a part of the community. Rusante, who is the main character and the husband of Bettia, is also a villainous character. And then there's also a woman who is just a neighbor. So the setting of La Moscheta, it takes place in a suburb of Padua in the 16th century. Biolco's characters face many different difficult situations, including famine and poverty, which was a result of the most recent war in that play, making the mood of the play one of sadness and despair. Similarly to the Padua slide, I've added a map of what Padua looked like in the 1600s versus what it looks like today. So the whole setting of the play is not very happy. It's not very bright, just because it's kind of a survival of the fittest from a like an impoverished standpoint. So lots of people are only looking out for themselves. So it's a bit of a war-torn setting. Oh, and just a small fun fact, that Padua, the city that La Moscheta takes place in, actually hosts the University of Padua, founded in 1222, where Galileo Galilei was a lecturer. Okay, so one of the main themes portrayed throughout this play is poverty, which then brings it questions the faithfulness of the characters and it displays their dishonesty. Due to the fact that the community is facing due to the poverty that the community is facing of not having food to eat or places to stay, many people are living in constant fear. So their dishonesty and unfaithfulness stems from their need for survival. They're not being honest with their family members or their peers, and they're not being faithful because in the long run it does not benefit them. Um, Both faithfulness and dishonesty are shown in the play and its main characters. The whole premise of La Moscheta is Usante trying to prove his wife is dishonest and unfaithful. He displays signs of dishonesty himself by disguising his identity and showing he does not trust his wife, even though his wife is not being unfaithful to him. Traditional values such as love, honor, friendship, and loyalty are pushed to the side in this play as well. These values were also used to distinguish between men and women, but in this case, both men and women are treating them as if they are not high values at all. They are not treated with high consideration. Love is used to satisfy sexual desires. Honor is used as strength to persuade, while friendship and loyalty are used for individual gain and interest. Rusante and Monato's friendship is put to the test and failed by Monato when he pursues a romantic relationship with his best friend's wife. In this case, the friendship is being used by Monato for his own personal gain, or in other words, to satisfy his sexual desires, where Bettia comes in. So, La Moscheta is not Angelo Biocco's most famous work, or his most famous play. However, he has established a name for himself in Renaissance literature as well as in history today. He's recognized as one of the most powerful dramatists of the 16th century. His plays and monologues portray life in Padua in the 16th century realistically and seriously, which pleased people because a lot of the times lots of the plays had themes of just not being realistic and portraying a happy life. But in Biolco's works, he was very good at making sure that life was portrayed as accurately as possible. This made them very well received, especially in terms of using them for historical purposes. Like in a class today, me reading this book is very helpful in understanding more of how Renaissance life was. So my final thoughts is, overall, I thought La Moscheta was an interesting play to read because of the themes and character personalities that Biolco uses. Biolco's plays are not like others in terms of the language and context. Many of his works were banned from theater in the 16th century due to their profanity and their themes. Things like adulterous relationships, famines, poverties were not very accepted because they were not things people really wanted to see. People wanted to go see plays for happy endings, and his were not. However, I did find it more interesting to do research on Angelo Biolco and on La Moscheta than I found reading it. I was more curious to find out more about his life and career and how his work shaped literature in the Renaissance period, as well as what people had to say about him. Many people really believe that he had a great impact in Renaissance literature, especially Italian playwright and 1997 Nobel laureate Dario Fo, who compared Biolco to Moliere. So would I recommend it to a friend? I would not. It's an interesting book to read for a class. I'm glad that I was assigned it, but I would not pick the book up on my own. But if you were a lover of Renaissance or want to learn more, it's very interesting to read him, especially because he might not be, as much as he is well known, he might not be as well known as people think, especially in terms of Renaissance. People might think more of Dante's Inferno as the very mainstream one and not La Moscheta. The only thing is it is in Italian and it's difficult to find English versions, so that's something to keep in mind. But overall, I would rate La Moscheta 2 books out of 5. And that concludes my book review. Thank you for listening, and I welcome all your comments.